1,
2,
3,
4.
Alright guys, welcome to a special episode for the Hills Have Nerds. Today it's just going to be me and Lee, and we're going to be talking about our favorite horror stuff, just in nerd culture in general, maybe going out, stretching beyond, just our favorite horror stuff. I'm just going to say across all medias.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Is like, we had this episode coming out with the Hills Have Nerds, but we decided to split off and do a thing where we kind of just talk about some of our favorite things. So I guess we should probably get into it. Do you want to go first? Or want me to go first? Or Rochambeau? What are you thinking?
We'll start with the Resident Evil, because we both had it, I guess. And then we'll... Because I think we're just wanting to go a little more in-depth, because that one was just really broad.
Okay, would you care if I started then, where I have a very specific thing with Resident Evil?
Yeah, I'm a little more broad, so yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I really love in the spooky season is revisiting Resident Evil, but specifically Resident Evil 1 for the PlayStation 1. It's one of my top games of all time. It looks like a hot mess anymore. A lot of people kind of see that, and
yeah,
they're taking it back a little bit. You know?
Especially with that voice acting sometimes, but...
I hope this is not Chris's blood, or is it? It is Chris's. Yes. I hope this is not Chris's blood with Barry.
I kind of love the voice acting in it now, though.
I love it, man. I think that's part of it. It's like a campy horror movie almost. You know?
Oh yeah.
Because you got the beginning. Was, don't go. No, don't go. But yeah, I love playing that game. It really doesn't matter the season, but when I think spooky stuff, I think Resident Evil for the PlayStation 1, and it was probably the first game that legitimately scared me.
That first scene, whenever you meet the first zombie, and it turns around, and it was just, even for the PS1, like high graphic, looked amazing.
Yeah. Talking about the cutscene that
you get?
Okay.
That first scene that you get with the zombie just turns to look at you.
Yeah.
First time I played that game, of course, young, so that really landed. It hit hard for I was what, like 8 or 9, maybe?
Yeah, I would have been
first
10 or 11.
First time I played it.
So what gets me now is like he looks kind of like a clown.
Oh, yeah.
It's like some weird makeup thing going on, but at the time it was like terrifying, man. And especially just it seamlessly went like you walk up and then it stops, and then that crunch noise when it bites.
Oh yeah, and the GameCube remake though, I have to give it to that, because they really kicked up the actual horror elements and feel of the game. And honestly, I like the GameCube remake. It's probably one of my favorite Resident Evils in general.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I thought I knew that about you, that you like the Resident Evil GameCube version. And I still, I played it. I loved it. It's so good. It is brilliant. And I think in all regards, quantifiably, it's better than the PS1 version. But I have so much nostalgia for the PS1 version.
That's fair. The first Resident Evil I played was actually 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, yeah, except, I was born in 92, so, I was a little young for when they first came out, but...
Oh my goodness, I'm 6 years older than you. What are you doing on my porch?
I'll just go stand in your lawn.
Yeah. Oh, the worst thing that could happen.
But
get on my lawn.
But I guess that's where I have the nostalgia for, is actually 2. So for the tank controlled ones, either RE2 or Code Veronica is my favorites.
It's Code Veronica is also, God, there's so many good games in that series. Particularly, I wanted to share this memory with you. I remember walking, because you also visited Sean's Video.
Yeah.
It's a video store, a rental video store that we both frequented when we were younger. I remember in the old building, before they moved, walking by and seeing Resident Evil, the long box on the shelf for PS1, and being like, I want that, Of course, I actually didn't have a PlayStation, so I had to rent the PlayStation and then rent that game. And I think it was $10 to rent the PlayStation for a day, and $3 to rent the game. But I remember renting it on a weekend and playing it with my buddy Blake Johnson.
Yeah.
So, and we had a blast with it, man. It was something that still sticks with me. Like, there's all the cutscenes, all the stuff, a lot of like moments that sticks with a lot of people, like the Jill sandwich and whatever else.
Of course.
But when you step into the kitchen, not the kitchen, the dining room, and it's just the clock ticking, it's kind of legit spooky, dude.
Yeah, they have a really, really good sound setup for the ambiance in the game.
I agree, 100%. And even just like the thudding going up the steps. I don't walk up steps that are wooden without thinking about Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Thump, thump, thump.
And that's one thing that I think Resident Evil kind of lost later is that ambiance for horror. Because, I mean, they went more action.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as far as the games go, it doesn't mean they're worse. It's just...
Different.
It's different. Because, I mean, 3 is where the action started, really.
Yeah. Because it was a constant go, man. There was no
Yeah.
time to sit and settle on, the moment.
Yeah. But
Whereas
4...
you spend some time alone in Resident Evil 1 in different
Yeah.
places and, like, thinking about puzzles or whatever else. And 3 is like, go, go, go.
Yeah. 4 is where it really embraced it, but 3 is where it started, because you got mercenaries in that as well. But you start getting some odd sound choices later in just, like, the music as the game's going.
Yeah, because, like, as for music, there was, like, Moonlight Sonata
Yeah.
in part 1. And then there was, like, whenever...
Like boss battle music, essentially.
Yep, I was going to say whenever... Yeah, if you see the face, if you get what's his name, Barry to come in and help Jill, the dum 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 dum, like the music, the really wild music happens. But I mean, there's not a lot of music on it,
Yeah, and I think the lack of music is a design choice as well.
Yes.
So
And there's something to be said about like what is not said. Or
it is sometimes more terrifying to be lost alone in your thoughts rather than be constantly fighting those monsters.
yeah.
So
Well, it's that same sort of thing of like in a jump scare sort of situation. If it's just constant like up in your face stuff, then it doesn't work.
yeah.
But if you have the punch every once in a while, it's terrifying. You know?
You eventually get jaded to stuff like that.
Yeah,
So.
it's just it's kind of like you get hit, and after a while, it's like if you continue to get hit, it just the first last hit numbs to the new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Resident Evil, particularly PlayStation 1 version, absolutely loved it. Of course, the dog scene that scared the devil out of me. Man, it was bad. Like that, I remember exactly where I was. It's like one of those moments in history where you go, I knew exactly where I was when this happened. I knew exactly what the situation was the first time I saw the dog jump through the window. So,
yeah. Going a little bit farther in is the Resident Evil 4 remake recently. Or I guess starting with Resident Evil 2 remake and going forward, they recognized that everybody was saying too much action, and they pulled it back into horror, but kept done the well balance of like RE4 on the original. And I kind of appreciate that because it feels refreshing to actually once again go through those familiar places, but not be entirely comfortable with what I'm doing whenever I initially walk through it.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's as if any Resident Evil, multiple playthroughs, or any horror game really, multiple playthroughs, you quit caring what's there.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So the initial jerk is the rough part. Then after that, it's leaving from the nostalgia of that first initial playthrough. But yeah, I want to comment too on the whole like Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil stuff. I agree with you, man. It's not bad by any means. 7 and 8 were both brilliant, in my opinion, but it's just different. So
I'm also not a real big fan of first-person games, so they fell a little for me. But
I'm also
they
not
were
a big
still
fan
good.
of that stuff. So
I could spend like a full podcast going on about Resident Evil. So
right, just like we could sit here forever and talk about this. But...
So we should probably hit another one.
Okay. You want to go?
Okay. I guess we'll keep it in games, kind of, and I'll go into Bloodborne, actually. That's been one of my more recent favorite horror-type games. And again, it's more of an action RPG if you're looking at the standard, but it's the aesthetic of the game and the eldritch horrors that are in it. Because you're also looking at your character, you're building up, and eventually you get that powerhouse character where you don't care about anything. But it's kind of the lore of the game, setting everything up, and the mystery that really got me liking it.
Yeah, you went in. You went full in on Bloodborne lore, man. I've heard it.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
I like eldritch stuff to start with, and I'm not as versed in it as Josh is, and I think he's going to be covering that on his section. So, but just the idea of like the powerful, these all powerful beings, and don't necessarily know what they look like, and it's like there's this insanity driving your character, knowing that all these things are out there, and just realizing like how small you are in comparison going forward. Like, as powerful as you are in the game, it's still a disempowered fantasy.
Absolutely. So it wasn't until several years after I played Bloodborne that I even realized that there's like stuff on the walls, like there's stuff everywhere. What triggers that again? I don't. It's having something.
You can have. They call it insight in the game, and it's kind of like a sanity meter, like akin to Call of Cthulhu, but your sanity doesn't kill you in Bloodborne. It's basically having more insight into what's going on. So every time you run into a boss, or you do certain things in the game, or you pick up certain items and use them, you gain an insight, and after you gain so much, you can start seeing the enemies that's hanging on the wall. They're called amygdalas, and they're basically, I've seen in one theory that it was one old one that could project itself in multiple places. And I don't know if it's that or if it's just multiple, kind of like Cthulhu, like the priest of old ones. But after you get enough insight, you can start seeing through the veil that's placed over the city. You start seeing the truth of what is actually there.
And that's real creepy anyway. Like, I imagine you're going to talk about that with the eldritch horror stuff here in a bit, but... dude,
I'm kind of lumping it together because I'm not real big into the eldritch horror. Like, I don't know as much on it, but
well, that's with I've taught. I teach English. I've taught Call of Cthulhu, so the short story, and students like it, but man, it's not really entirely accessible at a high school level. It's tough. It's a tough read, and I tried reading that to like freshmen one year. Just reading it with freshmen, they struggle with it. But it's a really cool concept, and I think that whole like behind the veil thing is what makes that stuff really spooky, because it's like, what really is lingering just out of eyesight, just out of
Yeah, that's the draw of that for me. Is like, what am I not seeing that I know? Playing the game, I know it's there, but what am I not seeing? And it's like, how far does that stretch?
Well, that's kind of like the human idea of being on the brink of death at all times. It's like you're always like one heartbeat away from death, one breath away from death, and it's like, how close am I constantly to some kind of cosmic horror? It's spooky stuff.
I mean, there was for Bloodborne, there was a ritual performed that started a lot of this, but pulled in, and there was another separate ritual performed in another place that cast the veil over to kind of block everybody from seeing, to keep the general populace from being drove like pure insanity, to pure insanity. Yeah. So, and after a certain point, you break that one ritual, so you no longer have to have insight to see. It's just all laid out in front of you.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said there anyway with that sort of. Where was I going with that? That sort of. I don't know. I can't remember where I was going with that. Shoot, I had it and then it was gone. Breaking the ritual. Oh, I think it might be a quote from Call of Cthulhu. It's like, it's a mercy that, I think it is. It's a mercy that our brains don't comprehend everything that's going on out there. I know that's not the exact quote, but it's something like that from Call of Cthulhu, and it's like, that's the idea. It's like, it's a mercy that we don't, that the veil is there, because if we really knew what was going on, we'd all be driven mad,
Yeah, that's the theme of a lot of the Eldritch stuff in general. So, and that's like Cthulhu himself. If I remember right, Josh can probably correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will. That Cthulhu himself is just a priest. He's not even a great one, and that's mainly because like all the I guess I get them confused with Bloodborne and original Eldritch stuff as they're great ones or old ones. I think Bloodborne is old ones, or
I don't remember.
Or no, Bloodborne's the great ones, and then the old ones are whatever. But like the higher tiered entities in Eldritch lore, nobody even knows what they look like. You can't comprehend it. So if one of those was ever actually summoned, it's game over. Nobody, you can't stop them.
Yeah. And that stuff absolutely permeates so many games.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, I'm tempted to say that Bloodborne is one of the top-notch ones. Man. It's like one of the best ones for that idea. And it's not necessarily specifically, strictly that mythos, is it?
No, they based it on Eldritch stuff, but they've created their own mythos around it.
Yeah, because you have like Cthulhu Saves Christmas and some silly sort of.
And there's actually Call of Cthulhu games now.
Yeah, there's a Call of Cthulhu game for the original Xbox.
Yeah.
So
there's a newer one that's just called Call of Cthulhu, and I've not got to play it yet.
I haven't either, but I thought it looked neat.
Yeah.
I think most of them do kind of work around the whole idea of like insanity and that's kind of the idea.
That's a big thing for a lot of the Eldritch stuff is your sanity breaking.
It's cool. Bloodborne, my experience with it, dude. I love it. Like I love the mythos, but I suck so bad. I suck so bad at it.
Yeah.
I want to be good at it. Like I feel like I should be better at it, but every time I play it, I'm like, dang.
That's me in Dark Souls. Like I clicked with Bloodborne, I can't play Dark Souls.
Yep. And I have a platinum trophy on Dark Souls, and I can't do jack in Bloodborne.
I've got the platinum on Bloodborne. I can't do jack in Dark Souls. So
they just play so differently, and I think like for people that play aggressively, they might find
Bloodborne is more aggressive. Yes.
Yeah. Dark Souls it doesn't necessarily. You can play aggressively in Dark Souls, but I don't. I play defensively. Yeah. And so I suck at Bloodborne.
Yeah, they even put a shield in Bloodborne just to make fun of the fact that you don't really use the shield.
I know, because I found the shield and I was like, woohoo! And then it didn't do anything. It's like, it just does jack nothing, man. I think you can equip it.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't do anything. Like I was like, I can't parry anything. I can't do anything with this, Yeah.
Yeah, so, your gun is your parry.
Yep. That's when your gun's your parry. Come on now. Yeah, that's aggressive.
Yeah, and they've got a rally mechanic, so whenever you lose health, you don't lose the full health until a set amount of time, and if you get back in and do damage, you build your health back up.
See, for me, it's like I get wounded and I'm like, oh, and I wince and back off, but the idea is to jump right back in.
Well, you got to know when to back off on Bloodborne, because occasionally it's not worth it to go back for that health. You should probably step back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, that might be why I'm so bad at it. I'm like, all right, good luck, everybody.
You got to have a good judge of when to go in and when not to. I learned that pretty quickly.
That's I play pretty ultra defensive on that stuff. So like Elden Ring was actually a little difficult for me with that because I played so defensively, and there's so many moves for bosses in Elden Ring. On Dark Souls, it's like once I'm basically walking around with a shield and sword, like making a mental list of like what this person does, what these moves are, like any other game, and then once I've seen it all, I'm like, okay, this is how I deal with this. Yeah. But then it's not like that in Bloodborne. It's not like that in Elden Ring even. But
it's a little more close to that in Bloodborne than Elden Ring, but there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
Yeah. See, maybe when the game gets the 60 frames per second upgrade.
It's supposed. Has it got that yet?
No, not to my knowledge.
I seen somewhere that it was supposed to be getting that actually on PS5.
Yeah, so. A 60 frames per second, 1080 solid. I'd be down to give it another go. Because like it feels bad at 30 for me at this point. Like I know that I'm that guy, but it's like maybe I would feel better about it if it were 60. So
yeah, I love the game, so I'll play it at 30.
Yeah, I played Zelda, and Zelda's 30, so I think it is. I know Breath of the Wild was, for sure.
Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom runs at 30.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking both of those ran at 30, and they're good. But, like, man, have you played Breath of the Wild on 60?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's lovely.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right, anyway.
What was your next?
Okay, I'll mention. I think the thing I want to mention is Pet Sematary as a book. There's several books I could mention. I've not read as much horror as most people, but Pet Sematary is the only Stephen King book I've ever finished. And
really?
I've started so many, dude. I've started so many. Needful Things, just a ton of stuff. But
it's a little difficult to read sometimes, yeah.
It's just the length is what gets me in a lot of them. So, even Pet Sematary was a short book at like 250 or 300. Yeah. I guess it's about what it was.
Honestly, a lot of his shorter works for me, I like better.
Yeah.
Like whenever he constrains himself down to that and tells his story, I like a lot of his short works better.
Well, you're going to mention one here in a little bit, so I'll wait on that. But Pet Sematary, I read it just a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago over the summer, and I absolutely adored it. I don't know what. Maybe it was the new movie coming out that encouraged me before it came out. Encouraged me to get into that book and take a look at it. I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down, man. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I wasn't even a fan of the first movie. Like, a lot of people like the first movie. I knew about the little boy getting hit, and I knew the premise. That's a terrible scene, and a terrifying scene, but and a very iconic scene in horror films. But man, that book, the movie just doesn't do the book justice. The book's freaking good. It's
been a long time since I've read the book, so I don't remember a lot about it. I need to go back and read it again. Yeah. But that's honestly, I can't think of a single movie about his works that I would say actually does the book justice. Mm-hmm. And that might be a little pretentious, but
no, that's typically the way it goes, right?
Typically, yeah.
I've heard Shawshank. The movie might be better.
Okay, I'll give you maybe Shawshank and the Green Mile.
Then
maybe those. Those slipped my mind.
I've heard Stand By Me is better than The Body, the short story. But I'm not sure.
You know what? I've actually never read The Body.
I've not read it either.
I can't speak on it.
I can't remember. It might be a short story, it might be a novella. I can't remember. But
yeah, it's one of his shorter works. I can't remember which it is.
I love the movie, though. Stand By Me is great.
Yeah.
But anyway, Pet Sematary had a genuinely super spooky moment for me when I don't want to spoil too much into the story, but there's a gentleman whose son dies at war. This is just a story told. His son dies, he goes off to war and he dies, and they bring his body back. They ship it back by train or something.
Yeah.
And he buries his son in the Pet Sematary, and his son comes back to life because that's what the Pet Sematary does.
Yeah.
And the scene where people were talking about walking up to and seeing the father and how miserable he was after he'd done this, and the son is like creepy looking. I can't remember the exact description he used, but man, it was terrifying. And the son is staring at the sun, the sun in the sky, like looking dead at it. And he turns and he smiles at the people as they walk up on the father there. And I was like, ugh, that is just, it freaked me out, man. I was like, it sent shivers down my spine. I was like, God, it's so creepy. It's so well written. Oh, it's good.
It's like, I know I made the point in our broad horror episode that Stephen King is not necessarily a horror writer, more of a character writer.
Yeah.
But he does some fantastic work at horror.
Well, I agree. And then the description of the dead cat when the church is brought back to life or whatever.
Yeah.
The way people are repulsed by it, and as church walks by and rubs against people, they they feel weird about it.
Yeah.
And then the way they describe the dead cat and the way he felt, I might have even said this on another podcast, but one of our other episodes, but I had a cat die not long after that, and I put the cat in a bag to put it in a box to bury it. And I remember carrying it and be thinking, oh my goodness, he really nailed that description. Just the bag of flesh, basically. That was my poor cat, But he did a great job with it. It was, ugh.
It's one of those, he can describe some of those things so well. It's like,
it's suspicious.
Why do you know some of these things?
That's a little suspicious, man. What are you doing? He's like, man, I gotta write this book. He's looking at a neighborhood cat, and he's like, I'm sorry. Thank you for your sacrifice, Mr. Mittens, or whatever.
I don't know. It may have been some of those trips on the cocaine he had.
It could have been that too, yeah.
But,
Wakes up to a dead cat or something.
which I mean, Pet Cemetery was right before this, but it may be some of the stuff recently because he was hit by that van. Do you not know about that? I can't remember when it was, but it was in the middle of him writing the Dark Tower series. He gets hit by a van, and I mean, it's bad. Like, he spends some time in the hospital. I don't remember how long, but it's like a couple weeks at least. Like, people were actually afraid that he might not make it. And like, it was they were afraid he wasn't going to finish the Dark Tower series. I mean, it was a 7-book long series, and I think he just finished, like, published number 3, 3 or 4 maybe. I can't remember exactly, but whenever he gets out after that, I think he tracked down the guy, bought the van from him, and totaled it.
He's like, revenge. I must have my revenge. I will never feel complete until I wreck this man. That's pretty funny. All right, man. So what you got?
I guess we'll stick with Stephen King because I know I said I liked his shorter stories better typically, but I was going to go with It for him, and I mean that's probably it's his second longest single book. Technically, it might be his longest because the Stand's divided up in technically 3 books, but as far as I'm aware, it's his second longest. It's over 1,000 pages.
Yeah, it's huge.
But
it was like 40-something hours as an audiobook.
It was 45 hours, I think. I listened to it not long ago.
Yeah.
It was 45 hours. And I think the Stand's 48.
Jeez, man.
But I like the way he's wrote his characters in that.
Yes.
And I mean, it's more about the kids growing up in the town and the way the town treats this entity that is living there. Because, I mean, again, going back, Pennywise is more of an eldritch being than a demon or ghost or whatever you want to call, like, whatever its form is.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, I think he fits that.
Nobody actually knows what he looks like, she looks like, it. Like, I think at the end they say that Pennywise, like, it is pregnant, but in the book, but I don't know for the being that it is if that matters, if it's a girl, boy, whatever. Not important, really.
Right.
But it also is described as having, like, more or less that its form might be, you know, in the movie they look at it and like this bright light comes out and they just kind of get hypnotized by it.
Oh, yeah, what's that called?
The deadlights.
Deadlights. Yes.
And they were saying that might be whenever you're trying to comprehend its actual form. So, and it's the whole town. You don't get this in the books or the movie, or you don't get this in either of the movies that's come out. But in the book, the town is kind of poisoned by Pennywise being there. Like, they're all apathetic to everything. They just don't care.
Yep.
Like, to the point that the new one kind of got it a little more, because, I mean, they had more time to work with on being able to portray this. But it had I think one scene where Henry Bowers had, I think it was Ben, out. And they were actually talking about trying to kill him, carve him up, like, actively harming him. And those, like, an old man sitting on his porch watching all this happen, like reading his newspaper, looks up and sees that happening, and just folds his newspaper up and goes inside. He's like, I don't want to see it. I'm not going to tell nobody. Just ignore it and it'll go away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they definitely did a better job in the new one. Because they make it pretty obvious that, like, he is, and it's kind of the same thing with the Eldritch Horror stuff. It's like it's affecting people behind the scenes.
Right.
It affects motivations. You know, in Call of Cthulhu, it's like people are having these nightmares. It's like people think it's to do with earthquakes or something. It's like everybody's dreaming the same sort of stuff because of this evil influence in the world.
Yeah.
So it's really, like, it's so good. I really liked the old school movie for Pennywise. And Tim Curry's a legend. He was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's so good, but I really think the new one is just, again, quantifiably better, dude. It's just, the new movie's great. And then the book, I didn't make it all the way through the book. I made it through like the first 8 hours or something in the audiobook, the first several hours, which still isn't much at all. Like, I'm still in the beginning of the book, but it's very, very good.
And I mean, you run into characters that's just kind of Easter egged into even the new movie. Like characters like Patrick Hockstetter. I don't know that he was actually in the new movie at all, other than you just see a missing poster for him. And I mean, in the original Tim Curry series, I don't know that you even got that. Like, he was just completely left out.
Is that the guy that they were beating up and throwing over the bridge?
No, that was...
For his proclivities?
I can't remember that character's name.
That part was terrifying to me.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen in the book, and it's for the same reason as shown in the movie. But
does it actually happen in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay,
in the new series, I think it's in the second movie, the chapter 2, that actually happens.
I can't remember because it was so vivid to me with the book that it felt like a movie.
Yeah,
and so I can't remember what I imagined. Like what I saw in my head movie versus what I actually saw on the screen. But I thought that was a brilliant spot, man, because at that point in the audiobook, it'd been like 2 hours since there was any mention of Pennywise. Like, there was just no mention because it's just character building. He's writing these characters and this setting and building that up, and it was so good. And then Pennywise says something, and I was like, oh!
Yeah, the guy that reads that audiobook does a fantastic job as well. But he just does a really good job of setting the scene for the horror to come in. Mm-hmm. But like the Patrick Hockstetter, honestly, he's might be like the worst person in that whole book. Like the worst character, like most comparably evil to Pennywise. Because I mean, I think he's only like 14, maybe. Might not even be that old, 13. I mean, they're all young. And he's going to school with them. I think he'd been held back a couple of years, so he's a couple of years older than them. And I mean, the first time I read this, like, yeah, it was incredibly impactful, because, I mean, this kid gets left home alone with his infant brother, I think, sibling. I can't remember if it was brother, sister, whatever. And he keeps having fantasies of killing him until he just wakes up in the middle of the night, sneaks in, and actually suffocates and kills his younger sister, brother, sibling, whatever.
Wow.
And I mean, his parent, nobody knows. Like, you read the book, and I mean, of course you know, but nobody else in the town knows that it was him that done it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he just kind of got away with it, or?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, debatably, because Pennywise eventually gets him,
right.
But like, as far as like anybody else knowing, yeah, no, he gets away with it.
So real quick, Pennywise isn't specifically punishing people for their deeds, though, right? It's not like Jason Voorhees, like, you had sex, teenager, now you gotta die.
No.
He's just like wherever he can get the most fear out of somebody, right?
Yeah, he can eat whatever. He can eat anybody for any reason, really. It's just the fear adds to the flavor of the person or makes it more nutritious for him. I can't remember. But yeah, and that's more of why he goes after children. Because, I mean, you can elicit more fear in a child, right. Like, easier in a child, typically.
Something I think is really neat, and it's almost, I mean, social commentary-ish with, I mean, he does do that sort of stuff, but as an overall, it's like looking at how the pain passed down in this town from person to person to person is killing the children. And that boggles me to think about. And then the people just having to deal with the deeds and dealing with traumas of the things that have happened in the past. It's impressive writing, man. It's so good.
I mean, he goes back into the past and does a lot of telling the stories of what Pennywise has done in the past in the book that you don't see in the movies. So, And I mean, one of them is, I mean, he takes and pushes people towards their. It's kind of like if you ever watch that movie, The Bye-Bye Man. He takes and pushes people towards their more evil thoughts, and he may not have directly caused it, but he definitely was more of an influence in causing it. Because I mean, like one of them is there's an all-black bar or club in. It was whenever Mike's dad was younger, so I'd say it's probably in like the 30s, 20s, 30s. So I mean, yeah. Racial stereotype, everything, segregation, still racism, hardcore going, and I mean, Pennywise pushes them down. They go in and they burn the bar down by the time they're having a party in there and kill a lot of people.
That's referenced in the movie.
Yeah, I know it gets referenced, but I mean, he actually goes into descriptions and full on talks about, the people being inside the bar, what time it's burning and everything.
Jeez.
So, I mean, he hits into some heavy stuff occasionally, but
it's good. It's really good. All right, you want to move on to the next thing?
Yeah. What was your next?
I want to mention the House on Haunted Hill. No, let's see. What did we cover? We've covered Resident Evil and Resident Evil.
Yeah, and then Bloodborne.
Stephen King's It.
And Pet Sematary.
I want to mention The Frighteners in particular. The Frighteners, which I actually for years didn't realize was directed by Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy, is a film that I always found fascinating when I was younger. I feel like it was almost Cabin in the Woods for me before Cabin in the Woods. It's a scary movie, but it's like I don't think Cabin in the Woods is scary. It's a horror film, but it's like
It's a horror comedy.
Yeah, it's just so meta with that sort of stuff.
I guess saying that kind of ruins it if you've not watched it, but I mean, it's like a 10 or 11-year-old movie. So
yeah. Regardless, it's wonderful. You should check it out.
Yeah.
But The Frighteners is kind of like that too. I think that might be my first foray into a movie that was funny, but also scary. And it had Michael J. Fox in it, and it was him dealing with a town that is haunted by the murders of some guy murders a bunch of people in a hospital. Then his spirit is out murdering people, and Michael J. Fox is a medium talking to people in the town and hanging out with ghosts. And he's kind of like he's a medium, but he's like a phony but real at the same time. He plays it off as. Have you seen this?
I've actually not. No.
It's so good.
I've seen like clips and stuff from it, but I've never actually watched the movie.
It's really good. So he's pretending to be like a medium.
Yeah.
But he's actually a medium. And the ghost that he talks to will go into houses and mess with stuff and pretend to be like malicious ghosts and what are those called?
Looking at like poltergeists.
Poltergeists. There's supposed to be like malicious poltergeists, but it's his goofy ghost buddies. Yeah. They go inside and mess with stuff, and then he goes in and like sprays water on stuff and tells people he's cleansing it, and then tells his buddies not to go back, and that's how he makes a living. And then his he starts to see like a real ghost. Well, they're all real ghosts, but he starts to see like a malicious ghost. And what it's been doing to the town, he's like one of the few people that can stop it. And so it has all the charm of the Michael J. Fox stuff going on, but then it's funny, but also there's scenes where it's really, really scary. So and that's one of my favorite horror films. Anytime it's on some kind of streaming service, anytime it's on TV, anytime I pick up the DVD, I'm like, I gotta watch this, and I can just watch it ad nauseum. I enjoy it so much. But it's one I would highly recommend to anybody listening, anybody watching, and of course to you, man. Like it's really good, and I think it is comparable to Cabin in the Woods in that it's funny, but it's also spooky. So
I'll probably have to check it out later.
It's good. I agree.
Well,
I knocked that one out kind of quick.
Yeah, I've got the Scream series for my next one.
It's a big one.
Yeah, and it's not a pioneering in like the slasher genre, but it was pioneering in the meta horror series. Like, after Scream came out, everything started being like a meta horror. They have to reference themselves or realize, whatever's going on. But it was one of those, like the original movie, still my favorite one. Partially nostalgia, but it's, and going back and looking at it now, it may not have been as good at the whodunit but I mean, first watching it, I was like, oh man, this is great. Everybody's a suspect. I don't know what's going on, but it does a really good job setting everything up with the, and I mean, it's not exactly scary, in the sense of like actual horror, but it's more realistic than like Jason or any of those. And I guess that's partially why I liked it so much.
Yeah. It seems like that legit could happen to any town,
Yeah. And I mean, it's a little harder now than, I guess, at the time with like forensics the way it is, but I mean, somebody could still go on a kill spree like that and be insane.
What a cultural phenomenon Scream was, and I mean, kind of still is.
Yeah.
Like, how many Ghostface do you remember seeing at Halloween, dude?
Yeah.
My goodness.
I mean, the last 2 years of those, 5 and 6 coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, 7's supposed to be in production, but, strikes. So we'll see. But
yeah, the first one's brilliant, man. It really made a lot of careers, too.
yeah.
And if not made them, it really, helped them. There's particularly Matthew Lillard, dude. So good.
Oh, I love him as a character actor.
Yeah, he's so good, man. They got me too deep, man. The line of him,
Yeah.
it's so. That movie really is great. I haven't watched it in years. I feel like I need to go back and watch it again. And it's been spoofed so much. I think it's one of those for newer people out there that haven't seen this, or people that are just even new to Scream. You owe it to yourself to see how many cultural references have stemmed from this.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the scary movie franchise.
Yeah, the scary movie franchise owes itself to that movie because the first one was a spoof of Scream.
Oh, so funny.
But yeah, and I mean, aside from 3, because I mean, I don't really care for 3 that much.
That's the last one I watched, honestly.
All of them are good. 3 is still okay. It's just I don't care for it that much. And then, honestly, the first 2 seasons of the MTV series was actually pretty good.
Really?
Like, I seen it on Netflix, and I turned it on because I was like, more out of morbid curiosity, because it was one of those, like, Scream series. How can you do a series of this? I have to know. And whenever I turned it on, the MTV logo popped it up, and I had to pause it, and I went, I don't know. I was like, I'll give it a chance. I'll watch it. And I mean, I actually enjoyed the first 2 seasons, and then they didn't finish the story and completely recast and done a different thing in season 3.
Wow.
And it's since been canceled as far as I'm aware. Season 3 wasn't very good.
That's unfortunate.
But I could probably go on forever about Scream.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the first movie in particular. I don't remember, honestly, hardly anything about any of the other films. I've only watched 2 and 3. 1, 2, and 3. But 1 is... It's so good. Like,
it still holds up.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the general consensus, is my understanding, is like Scream is a great film. And basically, it will always be a great film because it found its place, among fans or whatever.
He wasn't a pioneering slasher, but he's definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah.
And super recognizable, so.
Isn't bug flew my nose. Isn't Ghostface also in a game we play a little bit, Dead by Daylight? Is that
he is a killer in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
The only other slasher, no, there's 2 other slashers because Freddy and Michael are both in there. Technically, Leatherface is probably a slasher. He's in there, but Jason's the only one that's not.
That's awesome.
And I think that was just because of the conflict because they were trying to make their own game. But.
Yeah. Something that is a recent interest of me.
Yeah.
Sorry, something that is a recent interest for me is Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. there was a Netflix show, and actually my interest didn't stem from the Netflix show, but I heard a lot of people talking about the Netflix show when it came out, and a lot of people seemed to enjoy it.
It was pretty good. Hardly anything to do with the book.
Right. Which I didn't know that until just recently, actually. So a couple of years ago, I went to Halloween Horror Nights in Universal, and I started to watch the show because that was the featured thing. It was Haunting of Hill House was the one, right? I didn't make it too far into the show, but I did enjoy what I watched. It honestly spooked me a little bit. But I didn't realize the book was written by Shirley Jackson, who also wrote The Lottery. And I teach The Lottery, and The Lottery is fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought, when me and one of my fellow teachers were looking at a high-interest book for our students to read, because we don't typically teach a novel, honestly, because it takes a lot of time. We had it in a long time, so we're trying to push so many ideas out. But we decided we were going to buckle down and do a novel, and we decided on The Haunting of Hill House based on what we thought would be high interest. And it turns out it was. Students absolutely loved it. We didn't finish reading the book before we started teaching it. And so after we started, we were like, and then we actually finished reading it, we said, whoa, it's got some pretty heavy stuff in it for teenagers.
Yeah.
But it was good. It ended up being really, really good. It was super high interest. My students read it. We were reading it again this year because it went so well last year. So all of the sophomores at our school are reading Haunting of Hill House, and just like they did last year. And so they'll have that shared experience, right? And we try to read right around Halloween. But it was an absolute blast last year. We did, obviously I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's some really heavy stuff, and we use that to kind of draw interest for our students too, because I was like, listen folks, when I told my students, I was like, we're going to be reading this book, it's really dark, it's really messed up, I'm going to have the guidance counselor come in here and talk to you guys before we get going. They were like, oh snap.
Well, I mean, there is some stuff that's pretty rough in there.
It is rough,
but I mean, I think, and again, this will vary on the kid. I think it depends on the kid, but kids in high school should still be able to handle what's in there. Like, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
it's still, again, depending on the mental maturity of the child. Yeah.
And I think that really kind of helped us to push that too, because we treated it as maturely as we could, all the themes and wild stuff in there, and used it as cautionary sort of stuff, because what happens in the Haunting of Hill House book, and I guess you've read the book, right?
It's been a while, but yeah.
It's about isolation. There's like a big focus on isolation, and this was coming out of COVID years for us, and our students have been kind of forced to be isolated. Yeah. And so they're still kind of recovering from that, and I feel like that's going to be a trauma for our kids for a long time. But they're still dealing with the fear of being alone, but also the need to be together, the fear of being together, the what's it called? Agoraphobia, sort of agoraphobia stuff. The students still dealing with that sort of stuff, and so this book was almost like a cautionary tale for them about what happens to the main character in her isolation when she finds herself isolating and being away from other people. And so our students, I feel like they really responded to that, and it was a great experience to share in and discuss and whatever else. I mean, it was incredibly high interest. I anticipate it will be the same way this year, and I'm looking forward to teaching it. So, and when I read it, I was like, you know what? There's certain things in that book that are just brilliant. So I thought, this is going to be fun. It's going to be a little spectacle. It's going to be like some wild stuff happening. But I had never seen an author a prose author use repetition the way she does. Because like when things start getting funky in that book, the characters repeat lines and the same stuff happens over and over. And so when I start seeing that now, it's like terrifying. Yeah, it's like we were going down the hill, we were going down the hill walking and stuff like that. And I was like, oh no, it's starting.
I need to go back and read it again. It's been so long.
So good.
I don't remember much about it.
It ends really tragically, and there's an incredible amount of foreshadowing in the book. Like everything you read is just, oh my goodness, really, really, really.
It's like you've not watched the series, right?
Nope.
There's an incredible amount of foreshadowing in the series.
Really?
You need to watch the series. Like, it is actually really good.
Yeah, I've heard it has little to nothing.
Yeah.
By name, basically. Right?
Yeah, it's character names, basically, but I would
It's good
suggest
in its own
watching
right?
it. Yeah, it is good in its own right.
That's awesome. Good to know. All right, what else you got?
I think I'm actually going to change because I was going to do like the reportedly true stuff, but I'm going to leave that out. We may do something with it later, but at a different time. But I think I want to do Lights Out, the movie.
Ooh, yeah.
And I went back and forth between it and The Conjuring, because I mean the Conjuring stemmed into the reportedly true stuff. But Lights Out itself is kind of like The Haunting of Hill House in a cautionary tale. Because the first time I watched it, I just went in, I was like, cool, spooky movie, let's go. And I mean, that's just what I watched it as. I didn't look for anything, I just wanted scares. And I mean, it does a good job setting up the ambiance for everything. You know, using, honestly, the way it casts shadows, where, you know, the ghost can only be in the shadows. And I mean, you can start seeing some, on multiple watch throughs, you can start seeing things that you didn't see before, which is always nice. But after watching it for like an analysis, where I done that analysis of it, it's like, you know, the cautionary tale of untreated depression. And I mean, that in itself is horrific.
Yes, that's what I wanted to comment on with it. Like, I followed your analysis of it. It was really good. That was great. It was fun times. So I think it's neat because it's scary. If you just take it on a level of spooky, it's scary.
Yeah,
But
it does a good job at that.
And then it's not scary when you think about what it's representing. But then it's scary again when you think about deeper, like what it's representing.
I think it's honestly, at the end, more scary once you start thinking about what it represents. Because, I mean, there's some people that, like, even with treatment, you can't do anything with depression. Like, it's just, you just have to have a safety net there.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the way they have everything set up in that. And I mean, somebody, like, I don't have depression, so I can't speak with a experience that somebody else may be able to, but I feel like they done a decent job at a representation of what it's like. Because I mean, the ghost itself, they never got rid of it. Like, any time that she felt like she was doing better, she just kind of locked it away.
Yeah.
It was still technically there, but
Just one little barrier of protection between her and the, or her and depression, or whatever the issue was.
yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like, I mean, really, when you think about Cabin in the Woods, it's scary at first, then it's not scary. But really, when you think about like how humans are and how we would orchestrate this sort of crazy stuff, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I mean, same sort of thing with like something like Hostel. I think it comes down to thinking about how real it actually is after you realize what it's not. Yeah. I don't know, it's so weird to try to think about the layers there. But it's definitely one that has those layers, and it's an impressive story. Like, I went in thinking it was just going to be a spooky movie.
Yeah.
So, and it got, like, a lot more cerebral than I thought it was going to. Yeah.
Even at the basis form, like, just as a spooky movie, it still holds up. It's good.
Yeah.
Did you watch the short that the guy originally made? There's like a 4 or 5 minute short that the guy made, for a film contest, and entered it in. And for the analysis, I can't remember, but it got like top 10 in one. I think it won something else. And I mean, it was based on that short that he made that people came up and was like, hey, we want to make a movie. And I mean, that's how he ended up making a movie for it. And I think he also ended up directing Shazam, like one of the Shazams later. I'd have to go back and look. I think it was Shazam.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, let's see, Kazam?
Oh, the Strong Bad movie?
Well, no, I was thinking the one with Shaquille O'Neal. What was that called?
Oh, no, it is. That's the Mandela thing. The Strong Bad. I get those. I keep
Sinbad. You're thinking Sinbad.
Sinbad.
That is the same thing. Like,
I keep flipping them back and forth.
Yeah.
The one that's real and the one that's not.
Yep. But it was Shazam with Shaquille O'Neal, right?
It might have been Kazam. I can't remember.
Maybe it was Kazam. I don't know. It was Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it was Shaq, and the one with Sinbad was the one that's not real.
Right.
That's what. Okay.
What are we talking about that again? What did I bring it up?
That was the director for the Lights Out. Went on to Shazam.
Yeah, I was really confused at first. I was like, he directed Kazam. I was like, that's a weird jump.
No. It was. I think it was.
Was that what
It was one of the
Shazam before?
Yes.
Older film.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. Has he directed anything since?
Probably. I'd have to look up his credentials after, but whatever he's credited with.
It was a very well directed film.
Yeah.
So.
And he's got a few other things on his YouTube. I think it was like Pony Smasher on YouTube. And he's got a few other shorts that's pretty good.
Are they all horror related?
All the ones I've seen are.
Okay.
But.
Very cool. Well, is there anything else we want to?
No, I believe that is all I had for this.
When we cut this down, it'll probably be about 45 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
But
should be good.
Yeah, folks, we appreciate you tuning in, hanging out with us, and watching this. However, it turns out we thought we'd try adding a little video to it, and pushing that out to see how it goes. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, there is a video out there. I'm not sure where we're putting this video yet. Probably on the Facebook.
Yeah, we'll probably post it on the Facebook for sure.
And then go from there. But I hope you've enjoyed hearing us rant about these sort of things. I guess the important thing I think about is like horror is different for different people.
Yeah.
So I could go on all day because there's plenty of stuff that like is terrifying to me. I talk to you about stuff I enjoy. But there's a lot of stuff there I don't enjoy because it's just too spooky.
Right. That's what scares me. Won't necessarily scare anybody else.
Exactly.
But so horror is subjective.
Yep. Clockwork Orange, dude. That's one I don't do anymore. Nope. I won't do that. I won't do Hereditary. There's just a few I won't do.
Hereditary was cool.
Yeah. I want to watch Midsommar so bad. I want to watch it, but I know it's going to mess with me. It's like, like a fork in the outlet.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm in a good enough headspace right now to try that, but I've been trying to get in that headspace for like a year or 2 years now. So I want to see it so bad because Hereditary is brilliant.
Yeah.
I just can't watch it again. But anyway, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Thank you so much. If you got any comments about any of this stuff, we'd love to hear your comments.
I would love to hear your comments. Love to hear what your favorite horror.
Oh yeah.
Whatever media your favorite horror.
Yeah. So that's cool too because it gives us an opportunity to talk to people in the comments, but also see what they are into. And then gives us some ideas of what we can check out.
I'm always down to check out something new.
Yeah. It's like asking what the favorite candy bar is. I'm like, I think I'll try that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I appreciate you. I'll plug my YouTube if this is not on my YouTube currently. I do mostly RPGs. It's retro video games at Pixel Bro Lee on YouTube, and I'd love to have you around. I stream too on Twitch, and basically all over the place. It's Pixel Bro Lee. So if you'd like to check out any of that stuff, I always appreciate you. And then Cody, you're on hiatus currently, or?
Currently, I finally got moved in, so I might start back up. But
you had done this sort of stuff. You did
Twitch.
I've
done Twitch for a little while. I don't know if I'm going to keep up the YouTube because that's a whole lot more work than I currently have time to be able to put into.
It's a lot of work.
But if I pick up either one of them, I won't do Twitch and YouTube together, unfortunately. But if you find me on either, it was Coffee Break Lounge. It's the YouTube's still there. I had like a Resident Evil lore stuff on it,
which is good, very good.
But you can also currently I'll be posting stuff on the Heels Have Nerd Facebook page. We may try to get the Instagram up and rolling. I don't know how we're going to do that, but so I'll be posting stuff on there. Probably find this video there. But as always, a like and a review. Let us know how we're doing. Yeah,
thank you so much. If you made it this far, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Listening to us ramble.
Yep. Well, stay nerdy, I guess. Is that what do we say?
I guess, yeah. Keep it creepy. We're at Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Keep it creepy, yeah.
Vaseline.